It's time for our second venture here in London. We're going to be getting underway with our group stages for the challenger stage of the FACEIT Major. We're in the big smoke and already things are starting to heat up. We have our first victory, Space Soldiers unable to weather the storm of Rogue, of course, with a coach as a stand-in. It was all but said and done prior to the first frag, and that's locked in. Now I'm joined by Sponge and Pimp for our next adventure, and it's going to be Virtus.Pro taking on NiP. Now this is interesting, and Jacob even just said, just before the cameras start rolling, I've got a feeling about VP. Now you have to back that up.
Throwing me on that bus again, Alex.
That's me, man. That's me.
I don't know why. I just feel like now the whole situation with VP is the fact that Bialy is going to leave the team after the major. So this will be his last tournament with this very team that's always set in stone, which is normally not a good thing going into a tournament knowing. But I feel for this VP lineup, everything has just been a shit show for them for so long. So I feel, you know, now that we know this, why not have a good tournament just to back it up?
Well, we could probably catch people up, because if you only tune in to watch the majors, the VP, you might remember, has been completely and utterly dismantled. Taz is gone, and that's what we thought would be the mental reset for these guys. That's what we thought, that maybe the likes of Snax and Bialy would return to greatness. Not to be. Snax recently making the move over to Mouse Sports and trying to find a new home and a new bunch of history over there. They had to bring in Snatchy.
I've heard good things about this boy.
He was playing for Ago. Now, he was the AWP player. Now, what you have to keep in mind right now is that is going to force Pasha into a role change. Now, we all know Pasha in terms of Counter-Strike. He has, I'm not going to say one-dimensional by any means, that's not the case, but he's always been playing that role within VP and pretty much being that primary or secondary AWPer. His job hasn't changed too much. But right now, it's a new young gun coming in, and he's going to have to make way. How are they going to perform? Well, as you just mentioned, Jacob, Bialy's now on the way out. This team is just full of hate and resentment, I would assume. You're thinking yourself...
It's all smiles, what are you talking about?
Well, the only reason that this VP roster, or at least the core of it, has stayed together for such a long period of time is because they kept making top 8 to majors, which meant, hey, you know, we're relevant for another 6 months. This is their last stand to potentially do so, and being thrown together under this circumstance, they're going to need to have some massive performances from the players who are going to be remaining on this team as they go forward, because Bialy has nothing to lose at this point. He's already signed his ticket out of here.
I'm very interested to see how their performance does fare. And I mean, the Snatchy kind of discussion is an intriguing one to me, because he is, you know, him and Miku are the dream team for Poland V2, right? I mean, we saw that the Polish situation in Counter-Strike was, if you're not in Virtus.Pro, you're always going to be tier 2. That has changed, Jacob, this last year.
It has changed. Even Argo were at one point considered better. You know, Kingwin, for an example, as well. Now where Taz is playing, they're also considered better than Virtus.Pro, which is...
They're one win away from getting into the Pro League. Kingwood. Taz is going to be back in Pro League, and VP are close to getting relegated. So if that doesn't tell the story of Polish Counter-Strike, I don't know what does.
That said, though, when we have Micho and when we have Snatch in your lineup, there's some future in it, right? Those are two very young players. They are great prospects for the future, and both of them have been, I would say, performing on a higher level for quite some time. So it's not necessarily VP who is dead, but it's just going to be this core who is priding themselves for so long of being together and doing bad, that's just going to dismantle now.
And then on the flip side, you have the Ninjas in Pajamas. Now, if you compare the two, you've got two storied names of Counter-Strike, Ninjas in Pajamas and Virtus.Pro. Two nations who've dominated Counter-Strike, Sweden and Poland.
Major finalists.
Major finalists, absolutely. And now we have a situation where NiP are a question mark as well. These Swedes, they are looking stronger. They have made a roster change. But I want to understand, you know, what your expectations are for them coming into London.
What was it you said, Chet, at DreamHack?
Don't say it again.
Something about that, I think that this Swedish Counter-Strike scene needs to collapse and then rebuild. So I need both NiP and Fnatic to fail. But we need to look at it in the context of this match, and out of DreamHack Masters, NiP made it to the playoffs. They, you know, actually did some damage in front of the home crowd with vintage clutch performances from the likes of Forest, Get Right getting it done as well, and then Rez performing to a top level. Dennis himself made a tweet that he had one of the worst tournaments, or the worst tournament of his career, and the stats definitely reflected that. And then Lekra is still settling into this in-game leadership role with Pitta back as the coach. So I think NiP were in a similar boat to where VP are now. They're just further down the river, and they're still in a rebuilding process. They're still trying to find which pieces of the puzzle work. But if you look at this team, you look at these names, they're not nervous about playing in a big matchup. This isn't really... This is just another day at the office for them.
Some of their faces in those black and white profile shots, it looks like charity ads running, like, help a Swede today for just £1 a month. Lekro looks so damn sad. Either way, he is the new leader for the Ninjas in Pajamas. And oh, yes, sure, Dennis has had a poor performance on home soil just around the corner, of course, well, rather last week. But Forest and Get Right were fragging.
Yeah, they were, and I think when you compare like NiP to VP, I think there are kind of a lot of similarities. You see the young guns coming in and kind of taking over this generation shift that is happening in these two teams. You see it with VP as well in Mihu and Snatchy, who's coming in and slowly but surely will take over VP for the future. Whereas for NiP, it's the new guys in Lecro and Res who's going to be there for the long while. They're going to be there for the long run. The difference is that I actually do think that NiP believes in the project they have going, whereas VP is sort of like a dead project by now. We know Briali is going to leave the team. We know he's not going to be after the major, so something is going to happen anyway. In that regard, I'm just not sure, that's going to add up when you play against a team like NiP.
And Pasha also said in an interview that this may be his last major.
There we go.
So when you keep that in mind, it is a sad time for a lot of people, but there definitely has to be a point of changing of the guard. I think, that torch has already been handed over in most scenes. I think if you look at the majority of Counter-Strike scenes in the world, that's already happened. Whereas these two, Sweden and Poland, are still going through a transition period.
Because there is a lot of the old guns still firing. In fact, they actually feature in our head-to-head. Let's bring it up, because you also notice these names have been around for a while. A lot of players stepping onto this major idolize these two people.
There are two players throughout 1.6 history who you would argue over who the best player was, right? And it is these two guys on your screen right here. Forest and Neo are both still going. Now, obviously, I think you can notice that Neo's drop-off with contribution of frags is probably bigger than that of Forest's, but what Neo brings to the game is that experience. He's also doing the in-game leadership role. He's kind of changed his approach to the game, whereas 1.6, he was the hard carry. It was send him anywhere with an AK-47 and he'll destroy you, and the same thing can be said for Forest. We've just seen better things out of Forest more recently. He had that amazing clutch on Nuke. So if he can carry any of that form we just saw in Stockholm across to this event, then in my opinion, just based off of where VP are at right now, NiP have to be the favorites.
And I mean, that's where I was about to say, let's start outlining where this Ninjas win, because you guys are clearly leaning towards the Ninjas here. Where does this Ninjas win come from? Is it just your doubt of Virtus.Pro, or is there something in the Ninjas that
That's what annoys me a little bit about NiP. Right. I don't feel I know where I have them when coming into tournaments.
Sure.
Some tournaments, Res is just going to show up and be potentially one of the best youngsters in the world, and some tournaments he's just going to go missing. There's no consistency within this lineup, and I think that's the biggest problem for NiP right now. Whereas if you look towards VP, they're consistently not doing so well. So you know what you get with VP, but you don't really know what you get with NiP.
And this is what you get from VP in terms of maps. Now, just to quickly help you understand what's going on there, your online results are in the brackets. Your LAN are just the average percentage. Now, we haven't seen too much from VP. We're noticing that they are loving Nuke, which is an interesting conversation in itself. Seems like Cash is something they're willing to play and haven't been succeeding on too much.
The last two tournaments these guys played in had both of the tournaments, IEM Shanghai and then the Zotac Cup. They announced within the realms of both tournaments that they were making roster changes. So with that in mind, coming into the biggest tournament of the year, the map pool really doesn't even matter at this point for these guys. I can't see a single player on that roster that I could put stock in to carry a game single-handedly and get a victory against NiP.
Hope he's Snatchy, isn't he?
You think so?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know. Like, they're obviously playing. So Snatchy, this is the guy's first major,
yeah,
right? Yeah. So this is a big deal for him. When you have to put that into context, there's a lot of pressure in that regard, and that's why I feel like it's okay. On one hand, they're playing with no pressure.
I think on the main hand, they're playing with no pressure. They, when you've already in a team.
Which one's your main hand, Alex?
I'm left-handed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just testing you.
I had to think about that. No, but in my mind, it's just a case of Hey
guys, let's try.
Is it? I think it's more of a case of let's show up, let's just play some Counter-Strike, and this might be my last major. I'm Pasha.
That's the vibe they're giving us, right? They give us the vibe that it doesn't really mean too much to them. Pasha would never go out in an interview and say, this may be my last major before the first game at this major. The focus is not towards winning the major or playing well at the major. The focus is more like on themselves, and this team is in disarray, I feel. So overall, when you look at it from the outside, it is a team that is currently not working with the inner workings, and it is going to be tough for them to see them do well, especially against a team like NiP. What's good for VP is that the level of teams right here, there are teams that can beat Spirit, Vega Squad 1, those like Space Soldiers would have stayed in as well. It's possible. There's one stat there on the screen right now for NiP, and that is the overpass statistic of 100% win record on LAN in the last 3 months. I think that's 7-0 that they're currently sitting at. Yep.
So they obviously are very proficient on that map, and that's really interesting when they don't have, I don't want to say not a star AWPer, because both Forest and Dennis can AWP at a very good level. We've seen Lecro pick it up before as well. Even Rez uses it on Inferno. So they have so many different people that can AWP, but to have a map that can be taken over by AWPers where they have such a success rate on, that's a really positive sign. The problem is if you have a map that you're 7-0 on, you're probably not playing it in the best
you won't
of one.
see it in the Swiss format.
No, you're going to find yourself in one of those middle ground maps. But Nuke is always one of like those question marks, right? Because they were pretty good on Nuke in Stockholm, but VP historically have always been good on Nuke. Like it's like just don't play VP on Nuke. It's like the Tyler and Mirage situation.
Yes, but
Differences.
Different.
Very different now.
And a different VP. Yeah, I mean, I don't know where this map is going to go. Now, the veto is done differently here, so we're not going to be talking about that just yet. I assume eventually we'll get to see it from the player's perspective once they get into the server. But once we've kind of outlined, okay, VP perhaps somewhat of a limping gazelle coming into this tournament. On the other side of things, the Ninjas, how far do you think they can go at this tournament? Where if we operate under the assumption that they're picking up the first win, which category did we put them in our
We had them in
podcast?
We had them in one of the teams who are more likely than not to make it.
You put them with the Norths of the world. No, just under that, sorry.
They gave North their own category, and then it was like NiP, Hellraisers. They were in that next kind of zone.
Okay.
Oh, you made an argument for Big to get in there as well.
No, we can put them in that category.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's fine. I'll be nice and smug when they.
But yeah, they should make it to the next phase. They should make it to the next 16, where they will face off against the current legends, where you have the likes of MIBR. You've got the phases of the world.
It gets scary.
But then at the same time, you have the G2s who are relatively untested. You have the Fnatic who haven't shown us anything great. You have the Windstrikes. There are teams there that are definitely victories waiting to be taken.
And I think that's the positive when you look at NiP. They showed at DreamHack Masters in Stockholm that there's potential, and especially when you consider that Dennis has his worst event ever. And he's supposed to be, I wouldn't say the best player on the team, but he's supposed to be one of the most impactful players on the team. So when he's having a bad tournament, you still make it to the quarterfinal, you still look competitive in the games, then there's definitely a chance that NiP could go far in this tournament.
I just had a question for Jacob.
Yeah.
I just think that hoodie looks lovely. Where can I find one?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lovely hoodie. It's just trying to make it easier for the graphic guys, so you always know who I am.
Okay, so they always know.
There's actually a homepage where you can get it.
Okay.
It's got nothing to do with the fact that you lost your suitcase. I say you.
For the second time in a row in London. I want to point that out.
He was here for the minor, same thing happened.
Same thing happened. It's like they have me on a blacklist or something. I'm just
like, oh, this guy, yeah, let's just put his luggage over here. Okay, how long did it take to get it the first time?
4 days. So.
Okay, so we need to buy this man
for 5 days.
Buy this man some t-shirts or something. I don't know what we're gonna do. You travelled in this, I assume.
No, actually, I didn't put it on. I had it as a safety if I was freezing, but it's clean for now.
Okay, good. So we haven't got a smelly pimp just yet.
Not yet.
Is the first time I've ever said that.
Well, there's a couple of them. Yeah.
Sponge machine was another one.
Yeah.
No, sponge.
Switching a sponge with a pimp.
Switching a sponge with a pimp, and the first time I'd ever said that in my life. But either way, we are supposed to be staying on topic.
Well, we wouldn't want anybody to get upset at us, would we, Alex? So
no.
Let's see if we can, pull some magical analysis.
I've got something for you.
Okay.
So we talk about, it was Maniac I was talking to in Sweden, and he came up with this interesting kind of collaboration of when Rez has a performance above 1 rating, NiP wins some absurd statistic like 70% of their games.
Okay.
Which is, it's easy to understand why, since he is supposed to be their star.
Sure.
But this is a player who, why is there a correlation between young star fraggers and an inconsistency?
So
why is that often a pairing?
If we go back to Oakland last year, where Rez was the MVP and NiP won the tournament and no one saw it coming. What was so good about him in that tournament was his moves, the way that he had approached the game, his practice that he'd obviously been doing in the FPLs, the rank S's of the world.
Moves sounds vague. Help me out.
But okay, so if you have a default and your job is to be the squeaky door player, when you play a pug or any time that you will always be doing that same thing, and you have a way or a timing or a certain smoke or a flash, and once that gets found out, once that gets identified that you are powerful in that position, you get neutered. That's what we saw happen after Oakland. He dropped off significantly. So Stockholm could just be another one of those events where he had, the aggression, or he had
new moves.
Exactly. The problem is, coming into this tournament, people have seen that he had another good event. So has he matured since Oakland last year? And we're going to be expecting a better Rez or a more consistent Rez?
Have you ever been on the receiving end of that, Jacob, where you right, so talk to me about this. What does it feel like from the perspective of, I've been doing this and it works, you get to an event, get to a match, and suddenly nothing's working, everything feels awkward.
Yeah, it's like you've been figured out and you don't realize it before the game is over. You keep trying to your old self. You think to yourself, all right, 2 weeks ago this works, I'm going to keep trying and trying until you hit the brick wall and game is over and you lost, right? So it's a bad feeling, and it's something where you have to mature. It's something where you have to stop yourself the third time and think to yourself, all right, didn't work the first time, didn't work the second time, let's try something new now.
The way that can perpetuate itself is in such a negative sense, though, because if you go into a game and you know that you've been studied, or because you're doing the study as well, right?
Right, sure.
If you feel like you have just been absolutely booked, like they've got your number and they just know, and it happens early in the game, it can be in your head. Maybe they just got really lucky But that could have happened in that regard. And then you start changing the way you play. You find yourself uncomfortable. Your timings are off. You're just starting to overthink things. When Counter-Strike, especially for star players like Rez, should just be focusing on popping heads.
And that's the thing for star players like Rez and for aim-heavy players in general. You don't think too much about what you're doing and why you're doing it. You just do it. So as soon as you start to think and overthink yourself, and it's one of those scenarios where it feels better if you're just doing it without thinking. And it shouldn't be like that, but that's just how it is when you play the game on such a high level.
I mean, the fact that we asked Forrest, why aren't you leading? And he was just like, yeah, I'm not. I don't really like to think about it.
This is a funny one.
Okay, mate.
I think that's a good point, because we also heard from them that they don't veto by committee. The coach and the in-game leader go off and they do the veto, right? Yeah. So when you think about that, that means that these guys are just, they feel like they have a good enough game plan or are prepared enough on a map or any map that crops up that they can go into it. Here it's going to change, because you watch what happens when we do eventually get to that veto stage. They're all going to huddle behind the same PC and watch it, because you all do it on one guy's screen.
Even Get Right said at DreamHack Masters Malmö in one of the matches, in one of the best of threes, that he wasn't told what map he was supposed to play until 2 minutes before the game. And there's an aspect to that as well. I feel like that's maybe a little bit immature. That's maybe a little bit arrogant in a sense, where it shouldn't be like that.
You may be surprised, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's different. I don't know the function that you've had within certain teams, but I know that when I would prepare my players for matches, it's better when. So if like JKS, for example, he would always like to watch his opponents. That's good for him. But there are other people within the team who did better when they didn't know the tendencies of other players. They just took those duels and they just did it their way.
Just kind of played their game,
exactly.
Which is something we hear 9,000 times a tournament.
But isn't that a very one-dimensional way of doing so, right? And maybe a little bit immature, and just accepting the fact that you're not able to adapt and maybe understand the opponents.
Yes, and I think you get in a cycle, right? If you're like a mid-tier team, if you're like about 15th in the world or whatever, you can't just elevate yourself by, you're playing tournament after tournament, you're playing online leagues, you're playing these qualifiers. If you want to sit down and actually do and build a structure like an Astralis of the world has, it takes a lot of time. Now, these guys probably feel that they don't have that time. They need to do whatever they have in their back pocket to win, and that's playing the more comfortable brand of CS. The thing that I guess maybe we could grab the North storyline and look at that. They prepared for a very long period of time to get to the point where they're at now. Whether they can continue that on is a question mark for this group stage to see what version of this North roster we're going to get.
Well, it's depth, isn't it? Depth seems to be, we talk about, how the depth of a team or the depth of a map pool, and it's always a very interesting conversation, because you see some teams, they maintain it. Some people have a North Stockholm, and then we get to see them in the semi-finals. We did see them in the quarterfinals. They don't leave the playoffs ever again. Other teams, not pointing any fingers, perhaps even in the major circuit, have that peak, and then we lose them. They disappear. And I think it is all about the willingness to reinvent yourself, and I'm very intrigued to know whether or not we'll get to see more of that in this major.
I think that there are certain teams who will have pocket strategies coming into this, and this will be the lowest, not the lower ranked teams, right?
The equivalent to cheese in StarCraft.
But it is and it isn't, right? I like to use the word like gimmick with a strategy like that, and it even isn't a gimmick. It's just something that you can prepare and build off as an in-game leader. You dry run it 1,000,000 times. You dry run the fake 1,000,000 times. If you can have that happen on 2 key gun rounds, as well as picking up one of the 2 pistols, and like I said earlier, winning a crucial clutch here or there, that is actually the game in the bag in a best-of-1 scenario. That's as simple as that. I know it sounds like a lot of work to get through, but those moments happen so quickly.
I can assure you a team like Big will meet up with something we haven't seen before.
Oh,
That's just how it is. It works with these guys. They want to make sure that they have a chance, because they know player by player, individual skill, if they match up against a lot of these teams, they will not make it. So they have to play on other strings in order to be competitive here. And I think that's the cool storyline around a major too, right? You have teams that are trying to utilizing different ways of playing Counter-Strike in different scenarios. And I think Big is one of those teams that you have to look out for, simply just because they have the history of making the unorthodox plays.
And on your screens as well, you may be wondering what the weight is. And we're not here desperately to podcast. Instead, actually, it sounds like Pash is just having some issues getting into his account. So we'll be waiting for him to get
with all those two-step authentication and the phone and the app and all the goodies. I guess they need to get those out to put the code in. We've all done that a few times.
Yeah, you've got to make sure you get the right skins.
Yeah, you don't want to lose your skins, chat, man.
You don't lose your skins?
You don't want to get cheated on and lose your skins.
The only skins that I have are my souvenir skins from the majors.
Yeah, it's very narcissistic of you.
I know, but I think
every
to myself,
skin has to have a sponge sticker. I'm only joking.
But it's nice because they're gold and they remind me of a time when I was happy.
I have, oh my goodness.
As opposed to now.
As opposed to now. I have a PP Bison from the souvenir, which dropped on my Steam account when I was casting ESL 1 Cologne, my first big cast.
That's quite nice.
Yeah, it's a really ugly skin. It's like the battle-scarred
But it's not about
grey
that, though, is
PP
it?
Bison.
It's about the memory.
But it was a VP game, VP Fnatic.
It's a skin.
And it's a skin. Excuse me. But
if we had a map to talk about, maybe we could, direct our conversational flow in that direction.
I couldn't agree anymore.
But we can also talk about how annoying it is to be a player in a position like this. If you're mentally prepared for a game like this, and you're slowly but surely getting fired up, you're finding your focus, and you're ready to go into the game, you're joining the matchmaking system, whatever they're doing right now, and all of a sudden you get told, well, the other guy has a computer issue. I know for myself, sometimes I could sit there and think, Jesus Christ, why am I sitting here? Why are we not just going outside? We can talk about the game, we can do something else, I can get something to drink or something to eat. It's just annoying to sit there and wait, so you gotta keep the positive vibes going.
I did see Valda tweeted exactly the same thing.
That it's just like the whole mental game there that starts to, and in a case where VP is going up against NiP, you could say it's kind of even because you have the youngsters on one side, you have the youngsters on the other side as well, and you have the experienced players in both teams. So it shouldn't affect neither team more than the other, but it is just annoying, and you can probably attest to it as well, Chad. Yeah. It's one of those scenarios where you just wish you could get the game started, and you kind of lose focus.
Yeah, and then I guess what can happen as well, if you're a younger player, you can in the hype of the game going to start, maybe you forgot to check a setting after all, or maybe you reset something and you haven't actually checked everything. There are a lot of occasions where little details like that, and then you have to take a pause, you have to fix it, you have to settle in, but it's not the way you want to start a series.
I once played a major game with my wrong sensitivity.
Oh. A whole game?
Yeah.
And how does that even happen?
Because, I was so focused on everything we talked about before the game, so I didn't really warm up for the game, and when I sat in, it was the pistol round. It felt a little bit, didn't feel
you're
right.
Like, it's LAN.
Yeah, but it's LAN, new environment, new tail, new height, all that kind of stuff, and I figured out after the game I played with a complete wrong sensitivity.
People don't understand how finicky it is, though, moving from your home PC setup to a LAN environment, right? You want it to be as close to home as humanly possible, but there's these little things that you don't even realize, like maybe the desk height's a little bit different. I used to take a level, and I'd put it on my monitor when I'd play the event to make sure my monitor was perfectly level.
So this is interesting. Now, of course, you're talking about your experiences at a major to me going to an iSeries, so just pinch your soul here. But my first ever, we're talking 16-year-old gamer who wastes his life playing Call of Duty, go to my first event, and so I just lost the ability to play. And it's just because I realized I played in a corner desk, so I was so used to having the table and where my arms rest, and suddenly I'm playing like this, and then my chair was wrong, and then I'm and the mouse, the tables were made of cardboard iSeries, so they're all bumpy and there's bumps under my mouse mat. You just you get thrown off, and I wouldn't even imagine a different sensitivity. It must just throw you completely out of whack.
It's crazy how much has changed since we had the very early majors to the top tier events that we're running now. There's certain events have adjustable desks. The monitors now are coming. A lot of the monitors now come with little, markings, so you can set it exactly the height you want it, the tilt you have it at.
You have to do it in a time frame as well. So I think there must be. I imagine now the pros must have a checklist, right? You go in, you go, okay, do my digital vibrance, do my config, make sure I've got my auto exec.
Yeah.
No?
No, that just reminded me of something which tilted me so bad with my teammates.
Okay, go on then.
And then it reminded me of the Woxic mouse situation.
Oh, you're going to do your peripherals rant, aren't you?
Why, as a professional video game player whose job it is to travel around the world and play Counter-Strike, would you not have at least a spare mouse? A mouse pad's fine. Use any mouse pad. I know that some of us...
you should have a spare mouse pad.
I know, but the one thing that you should 100% always travel with is a spare mouse.
It's priority.
So I would then say, mouse pad is probably the second most important. Then I would say...
Keyboard?
The keyboard, because the headphones we're using in-ears a lot of the time, that's pretty similar. But with a mouse, I would travel with minimum two spare... one mouse and one spare.
Yeah.
Sometimes I was traveling with 4 mice, right?
I don't blame you.
And I sucked.
But it is. I'm sure we are getting to the point now where there is definitely some sort of process for the upper higher.
It's a fun thing, right? Because I remember when I was playing with Glaven, that's probably the only bad thing I can say about this player. He was, at least back then, I don't know about now, but he was very good at getting inside his own head. If the monitor didn't have the right color settings, or if it didn't have the right sharpness, or whatever, just a monitor, it doesn't really affect your gameplay, but mentally it affects you because it's not like home. And he was very good at getting inside his own head instead of just ignoring those factors. So stuff like that comes with experience, because I remember from my own past career that the first 2 years when I was at LAN, I wanted the exact same thing. I wanted to play with the same colors, same sensitivity, obviously, and same height and all that kind of stuff. But I sort of learned myself not to care about it. So I started to perform better on LAN because I really didn't give a damn.
Yeah, and I think it's actually so interesting when you watch a player do their setup. I've stood behind them at smaller tier events, and you watch the process. It is so it becomes a science. They go into aimbots, It's like 100 kills. No, okay, they start fiddling with the monitor settings. Shroud has got some crazy profile. I watched him do. It's like, oh, I've got to get my black equalizer and all this nonsense.
And then there's the guys like me also, you know, at events sometimes where you have a bad start to a game and you go in and you adjust your resolution. Like, I'm sure you would have a teammate like that.
Do you have a player that changes their resolution mid-game?
You would be surprised of how many players
that can't be real.
Havoc used to play matches with 2 mice plugged in. And he would
Dennis did that as well for Mousesports, didn't he?
Change.
But why?
I don't know.
What, as in like, oh, that round didn't feel right. Brand new hardware. No.
Yeah, so there's some little things like that.
Wow, that's actually crazy.
But the thing is, you can tell the difference between like an in-game leader and like a fragger, because the fragger will come in, he'll do aimbot straight away. My first thing is TeamSpeak. Everybody get in TeamSpeak straight away. That was my thing.
Right.
Like,
you want to get the levels. You want to make
the communication for me was the most important thing.
We just wanted to be the fraggers,
Just get in TeamSpeak. It's a nice program. You just open it, click a button, join the server, make sure that I can hear you, and then you can do as many aimbots as you want. Take your headphones off.
You'd be surprised how many delays there's been at tournament because like everyone was supposed to be at TeamSpeak and all of a sudden the team is pausing because there's one guy who just had really loud sound on the TeamSpeak.
Or you just have it like, okay guys, let's go round 1. You know the pistols, right? User has disconnected from your channel.
It's so finicky though. That's the thing, right? And I hope now. I would love to go see Astralis do it. I reckon they've got it down to a 5.
I'd love a video. That's content right there. It's just let's see your setup. How do they do it? It'll probably be 5 minutes
Put a GoPro
flat.
on someone's head and away we go.
Yeah, absolutely. We are just getting an update now as well that we're waiting for Pasha. He's joining the server now.
Ooh,
he's in. He's logged in. He's selected all his skins. Got the Dragon Lore locked in. And hopefully we'll be getting into that Vita. Because in case you guys are wondering why we haven't just got the map up and talked about it, the major client does actually have the Vita built in. So we can watch them live as the thought process goes down and we can see how it all goes.
Yeah, we kind of get it like the internationals pick band phase, but ours is super quick and not as exciting.
Dude,
so.
that is a whole game in itself. It's so much fun to watch that work. And yeah, it kind of is our equivalent, except we have 7 heroes.
Yeah. So definitely doesn't have the depth.
Perhaps not. No, perhaps not. Not at least with our draft.
And the players can control how quick it is, so sometimes teams just go bang, 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 bang.
But I also imagine that some teams almost have an understanding with one another that they kind of know which 2 maps they're going to play, right? Like as in you both know, you're both not stupid, you've both done your research, you both know it's Mirage or Cash, and so it's just like bing, 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 bing.
In best of 1, that's often the scenario. Unless you're playing against Existence, then it will take half an hour.
Right.
I guess the biggest thing here when we do talk about these vetoes is the fact that the team who is the B team, so when it's seeded right now, VP is actually the high seed, and NiP are the low seed.
Oh, is this it?
Yes, this is it. So get nice and close right there. So Train's the first map gone, and then...
so it's 2 bans.
My eyes are getting worse.
So Train and Dust 2.
Yeah.
Train and Dust 2 removed by the ninjas, and we wait for VP's response.
So VP with a high seed, they've picked to be Team B. That means they get to decide the side. That's what the advantage is by being Team B.
Overpass,
the Team A just decide which map that you will be playing on.
Interesting. So with Overpass gone, you talked about...
would you prefer to be in a situation like this? Would you want the picking side, or would you want
I don't think the side matters so much because we know it's going to be more like a middle ground map. I guess it was really bad when Inferno was super cutthroat, but Inferno's gone there as well. So coming out of that, we still have...
Mirage?
Cash and Mirage,
yeah.
Ooh. Looks like they were thinking about it.
He's toying with it, and they are going to lock it in.
Okay.
Is he happy? Oh, he's changing. Okay, he's trolling us.
That scared me.
I don't... Lecro.
Okay, so we're playing Mirage.
So in this scenario, it actually doesn't matter that much which side you start on of either of those 2 maps, because a lot of teams would be happy to start on the T side, and historically speaking, NiP has been one of those teams. If you heard Get Right say he likes to start on the T side, they can get warmed into things a little bit better, and they'll be given the T side here on Mirage. I think that with this map in play right now, historically, NiP were never a good Mirage team, but in recent history, they've been much better on it, whereas historically, VP were a fantastic Mirage team, but it's been more of an average middle ground map for them, and with all these roster changes, it's hard to put a finger on exactly what squad we're going to get.
We do have to, and I know it's hard, but because the likes of Pasha and Bialy is still there, Pasha, Bialy, the core's still there, I don't think we can even start saying old VP, because we have to make sure we say old VP as opposed to VP in the past. I truly don't think this is the same team. I don't think we can actually compare and contrast anything we previously saw from Virtus.Pro, because Snatchy and Miku, that's enough to completely throw everything out of whack. This Mirage, perhaps a bit more of a question mark. We probably saw it over in the Zotac Cup. That was probably the only chance we got to see from VP.
Yeah, and then I actually didn't watch that event, so
I
didn't keep my finger on the pulse on that one. But I think I did witness NiP playing Mirage in Stockholm.
Yeah,
and they actually surprised me. I wasn't expecting them to have so much depth when they had the mid control. They actually played off each other really well. But the win condition for NiP here is seems silly, but to make less mistakes, because I can imagine that VP in this scenario are going to be a lot looser. They're going to be taking a lot more risks as individuals. That's kind of what happens when you're playing in it from a position of right, and that's a feeling I'm sure we've all had.
A technical term, I'm sure. We do have the odds available for you as well to see what the sponsor have to say, and it does look like they're giving NiP quite a whole lot of credit. So that's doubt for VP all around from the analyst desk and from the bookkeepers themselves.
Those are some solid odds.
Yeah, crazy stuff. But I do still kind of subscribe to your spanner in the works idea that this is
Jacob.
Yep. No, I'm not saying they win it. I am, however, acknowledging that when we've doubted VP the most, they tend to do the crazy runs. Like as in whenever you remember when we thought VP were completely down and out, and then they came back for a one tournament.
Yeah, but that happened with NiP in Dubai, where they were done. They were a dead team, and then they ended up doing great.
Well, we're going to find out as these two teams are ready to clash, so we can go ahead and join your casters. It's none other than Dan and James to take us through Game 2.
Thank you very much, Alex. Yes, it's going to be an exciting one. It is strange to see VP as they are now. They even have these new jerseys, which I guess reflects a turn of the page when it comes to that core. But NiP, I feel like they're just too explosive right now. Of course, there is a volatility, but
I swear there's a grind remix of this track. It sounds familiar. Thank you, Desk. Thank you. We appreciate your patience. I got a shoe with snakeskin leather on. The question is, who's going to make a leather sofa?
Is it real?
Out of whom? It is.
It's not
do
just.
You know what my girlfriend said to me?
I reckon it's fake.
When you die, I want to make a couch out of your skin. A sofa. That's what she said. So that's my question. Who's going to make a sofa out of who in this match? I think that Mirage is a good map for these two teams to play each other. We saw a period, I think when Threat was still with Ninjas in Pajamas, we saw a period where they were trying to reinvent themselves. That's the word I'm looking for. When they were trying to get really aggressive on their CT side, you saw them making multiple plays like through the underpass and stuff. We saw really good stuff from them, but in the examples we saw, it was almost always ill-timed because it's a gamble, right? You don't know what your opponent's going to do in that particular round. You might have an estimation of what they're going to do. So like, let's say you make a play here and they go here and then you're out of position, such is life. But I feel like that was a turbulent time where, in my opinion, they were almost too aggressive. It was like too consistently aggressive rather than turning it down. And that's something that Virtus.Pro used to be notorious for, where you would see VP on the CT side and you'd often see T sides just standing very passively towards top mid, just waiting for a push that would never come until they stopped waiting for it and suddenly Virtus.Pro are there. So we've seen that kind of thing from Ninjas in Pajamas in the past, which is partly why I'm very interested to see where they currently are, well, both of these teams on Mirage.
They have all the pieces to pretty much make anything work. Do NiP is just really finding out, I suppose, like whose responsibilities fit in where the best. I think that's really one of the big issues there with them. I mean, for me as well, if I think back in time to when NiP had a really successful Mirage, you go back to also when Ali was on the team. When Ali joined the team, they'd gone away from Mirage for a long time. Then Ali was the guy that sort of unlocked it for them because he was so stable with the AWP and so reliable. And that's something that NiP can absolutely, they have that potential here. But I hope that we will see a good res this tournament, because that's when, as highlighted on this, that's when NiP are super exciting. But as you say, with Virtus.Pro, they've always had quite the affinity here. Pasha is still on the team. If he gets firing off on this map, he can just wreck everyone, and it's so rewarding to watch.
Yeah, and I think Mirage is a map where Virtus.Pro specifically have made a lot of strategy and tactics popular. For example, when you have the A plant on short and you have a B lurker and then they come through B onto the short position to defend the bomb plant, I would say that's something that Virtus.Pro made popular, which a lot of teams have picked up. So they have legacy on the map of Mirage, and I look forward to seeing what is happening. We were waiting for GetRight to join the server. He has done so now. Again, Virtus.Pro will be starting on the CT side. I know there was actually an interview recently with the person who made Mirage. I've only watched the first few minutes of it, but it's out there somewhere. Somebody send me a tweet and I'll retweet it if you put a link in there. I'll make it famous for a few seconds at least.
Well.
Okay, so Virtus.Pro went for a huddle, which is why there is a delay in the start, but we will be soon into it. Ninjas in pajamas look ready. I'm sure they're happy to be in London again. I think it's NiP and Fnatic, but I want to say more Fnatic. That's big fans of Nando's, Dan.
Yeah. So I don't think you have yet to. Did you make a prediction on this one? Which way do you feel this going?
No.
Well, now's the time.
I don't know who I want to pick, Dan. This may not come as a surprise to you, but
on the fence as always.
Do you know what? Like, I think it's really fun to do predictions on the best of ones, because I think that you can have a lot of fun with that, and I enjoy doing that.
Because there's more variance.
I suppose.
So the people who are actually good at them get less rewarded, and the people like you, James, get more rewarded because you don't have to put much effort into it.
Well, I mean, I think you have to put. You could argue you have to put more effort into it, because you have to have a feeling. You have to have a feeling of the groundswell, Dan. You have to know where the tide is going to make these decisions. But for Virtus.Pro versus Ninjas in Pajamas, I mean, it's better when you're forced to do it right. But let's see. I mean, where are you going?
NiP.
I need to think. NiP.
Yeah, I think. I mean, Virtus.Pro have a lot to do still. They have obviously, I mean, they have great players, but the core is being disrupted. Obviously, you still do have Bialy, Pasha, and Neo here for the time. Obviously, Bialy is eventually going to be on their way out from VP, and apparently Pasha's this could be his last major. Who knows what sort of effects like these things could have. You could put a positive or negative spin on those things. It really is like you'd have to go and ask the player and get a feel for how they actually, what their experience is going to be like from their perspective. But for me, NiP, they are a team that's obviously they have that volatility, but this is a great map for them, and in just Sweden just recently they played great on Mirage.
I have a quick question for you. As you can see, all these players have earbuds in. What was your experience like playing? Because I presume when you played competitively, you used earbuds. Like when I used to wear earbuds, that was many years ago, and they were terrible, and they were like just destroying my ears and super loud and just arse. So what was your experience with earbuds? Because a lot of people at home will just be using gaming headsets and may never have even used their earbuds to play Counter-Strike.
Well, so are you talking about when I used to properly compete many years ago? Are you talking about more recently?
Well, do you play with earbuds?
Last year, for example. Well, competitively, yeah. I mean, it's one of the best ways to isolate the sound, especially if you've got some noise cancelling on there. And then you slap some closed headphones on top. That's going to be one of your more ideal ways to deal with it. But when I was actually first competing, in 2005, 6, 7, whenever it was, I even made the mistake to have open headphones. At one tournament, I was playing in the ESWC, and I was playing the group stages, and I was sat next to a team of super loud Counter-Strike players. I couldn't hear anything, and I was just like, I've really set myself up to fail here.
I had an open, I think I went to an I-Series, but I had an open microphone. I don't recall, but I mean, I use push-to-talk anyway. If you use voice activation, I hate you. I just want to put that out there.
So I did a podcast recently with Rafa, who is one of the best, if not the best the best Quake Live player of all time, many consider him as far as 1 versus 1 is concerned. And he actually, he played Overwatch competitively as well. Now he's playing Quake Champions competitively, and he is just one of the best FPS players. And he was saying to me that his communication and his teams are refined to an incredible level. It is so important in his teams that the communication is perfect on comms. And what he says as well is that he hates You can't play on his team if you don't use voice activation. He thinks that these days the technology is so good, if you set everything up perfectly, no matter which environment you're in, voice activation should always be what you use, because it allows people to communicate at the moment's notice. By far the best. They don't have to wait until after a fight to communicate. It can be just more seamless and more fluid. And to him, that is more important than any potential bleed of noise. And it's just a setup issue.
That's interesting, because I know that some people struggle to communicate when they're in a fight, and there are a few times where there's so much going on. There's a fight, there's implications, and you're thinking about if your team communicate where they get a pick or something, or where a teammate loses, then you have a mental image of where you think everybody is and where they might be moving to. So sometimes you're processing all that and you can't physically talk, or at least press a button and talk. So I think these days, if you set up your voice activation properly, then yes, but people, my recent experience, Dan. There's mouth breathing going on. There's keyboard pressing, and it's just a sad state of affairs.
Yeah, it's different, isn't it, when you're actually playing with a professional team and you can invest time into that. Because again, from his perspective, and this is how I treated it as well, or tried to when I was playing on teams and had a big role in them, is that I would make sure that we would have protocols and reference points for all of the language in which you use to communicate. So instead of having something that might require like 2, 3, or 4 words, that's a common thing that you would say, you create a new words or like a shortening of some description to quickly communicate things so that as it's happening, the information is being fed to your teammates.
We are about to be in the game. Here we are. So who is going to be fed to whom? Who will make a leather sofa out of whom? That is the question. Send us your opinions on who should be the sofa. Mihu has a smoke and a defuse kit for the CT side of Virtus.Pro. They are defending, sending 3 people towards the B bomb site. Pasha playing close to the shadow position. We see grenades going quickly into the A site. This will be a prompt one. Rez can raise the alarm that Pasha is in that shadow position, but Snatchy's there as well with 2 kills. And there are problems here on this pistol for NiP.
Snatchy, good damage there on to get right, leaving Lekra alone. We know what he can do with pistols though, and he's got the P250. No Kevlar to work though with it, and that's an issue. That means that he has to be absolutely perfect if the 1 versus 3 wasn't enough already. Some fancy stickers there to show off on that P250. Looks very nice, but will the headshots go his way? Very good discipline here from the Polish side as VP slowly but surely whittle Lekro down. 2 HP left, and surely he indeed, Mihu will finish him, and that'll be the first round going to VP. Good start for them.
Good start in their new colours, the purple and green, the kind of toxic-y colours, if you will. Reminds me of Ivan Ooze, I want to say. Ninjas in Pyjamas will not win the pistol round. So, for those of you in GoTV, I have to suggest Pasha. And, I don't know, I don't always pick one per side. I think for now I'm going to go with Pasha. Anything for you? Pasha and Forest for me. Pasha and Forest.
Probably, yeah, I think I'm going to say Dennis and Pasha. And we'll see if they can get firing off here. These Deagles are really dangerous. And they've actually decided to get careful with them as well. I think there are different schools of thought with this. Some schools of thought is that, with the Deagle, you're thinking about angles in which it's the first shot that counts anyway, so the Kevlar doesn't give you too much. But the Kevlar, if you do get those shots, it allows you to finish a round much more successfully. But it's all about VP. Can they restrict these angles? And indeed, they are doing so quite well. I don't think there's been a single opportunity here so far for NiP. They're going to have to force the issue into a site, and that's where the Deagles get weak. And so VP are doing a really good job here so far.
Mihu's boosted on the default box. Now, what can Barley do? Does he hear... Oh, no one's taking any damage from the Molotov, so he might not know that anyone's there. 42 seconds left. Dennis still in that boosted position in the mid-window. 35 seconds left, and Virtus.Pro are just waiting. They are static. And now the footsteps will be heard. There's a flying player from Rez. Mihu will have to engage though because Barley can't get the job done. 2 kills for Mihu, and now there are weapons to collect. Instant flank from Dennis. Surely spots 1 player in the market, and this is a big issue for Virtus.Pro. Snatchy pressing forward, trying to take out the players in front of him before the one behind causes a bigger problem. But there is Lekra with a Deagle. Would you expect anything less from him? Lekra and Deagles means headshots almost every time.
That was a great round. I think for both teams, I would say. Virtus.Pro, the one thing you're very afraid of in a round such as that is those Deagle headshots. You don't want to peek those long ranges. You don't want to try to take 1v1s on angles and corners. You want to force them to have to rush down a site where the Deagles are quite weak, moving and shooting as they were. So VP did that perfectly, but NiP, they just had a really good timing, and their trade spacing was very strong. And that's the danger of NiP, that individual ability. And the force buy comes out now from VP. They stack towards the B site. NiP in a commanding position, but can they close this one down?
Moving through the mid area are Ninjas in Pyjamas. Now this presents its own challenges when the smokes are not down. Everybody has to cover everything that isn't smoked off. See how Rez clears connector. checks the right corner first. The left one is a blind spot, so checks that one second. Behind that box to the right is also a blind spot. You can have a CT there staring at the ground. You can find me there trying to knife people sometimes. Moving through to the short B position now. Dennis, how many players is he about to spot? Snatchy. There's another one by the bench. But there are 2 more players. Once again, a boost in default spot. Does he catch Mihu? Yes, nice flick from him. That leaves Bali alone, and that is quite the cleanup. There was a stack towards the site, but they were methodical, they were surgical. They made their incisions.
And that definitely spells problems here for VP, who will have to play catch-up, but they can't really do that much in this round, at least not on the face of things. As we look at Dennis firing off here, great entries found by him. Just, as you say, very clean stuff. It's such a strong start. Really, this is the worst way for it to happen. If you lose win that pistol round and then lose immediately afterwards on the force buys, your economy is ruined for much longer. And so that means there's really going to be a lot less rounds where the AWP might be possible here for VP if NiP play this well. Forrest going very far forward here, looking to see if he can get info. Or is that stack? Is there a stack?
Nice. Let's do the same round or similar. It's unlikely you expect this. Unlikely you see 2 stacks of the same fashion, of the same function. There's the pop flash. Can he get a second one? He can, just about. The spray spreading. Forrest not shy to take a 1v1. Taking the AK away. And now he can try to protect that AK if he recognizes that it has fallen. Neo's picked it up though. Potential double peek. Was he spotted getting around the corner? Ooh, he's got the snake gloves. Man, these are so expensive. Can he save the AK though, moving into the next round, jumping up. He's got to take this fight, looking for the taps, but Forrest will deliver the kill. There we go, 3-1.
Ooh, got the AK too.
Yeah, Rez trying to E the AK. Oh man, you know they made changes to make it easier to pick up weapons. I had a smoke grenade on top of an AK, and I couldn't pick it up with the E button. And it was right in front of the entrance to mid on the T side on cash. It was brutal, but I have a demo, so I will send it to Wolf because it was an issue. It was a problem.
So with NiP on the 3-1, got that economy looking pretty fine at the moment. It's early days, of course. And the AWPs come out onto Forest, and that's going to be really entertaining. Forest on the T side. It used to be the case that he'd only take the AWP out on the T side. I wonder if that is anything that's really going to be changing anytime soon. Used to be amazing with the T-side AWPing on Dust too. Used to love watching that. Neo watching the angle here. Lots of space given here to NiP so far. That smoke will delay things for NiP, and maybe that's time that VP can use to maybe make a play or get more information. Because it looks like NiP are set up for a very strong split onto the A site.
There'll be plenty of time left once that smoke dissipates. Nobody in a short position for these CTs, but Dennis goes out early through the smoke, and Neo is still waiting for him. Maybe thinking that the CTs would concentrate on a window in case of a boost, as there was a flank on the previous round, but no. Neo has that game sense. Now we've got double smokes from the T side. Look at the timing. They pop at exactly the same time. And now we see a creep through the smoke. Neo's trying to play around it, but Get Right punishes him for it. This is looking quite methodical from NiP, but can they close it out?
Another frag coming out from Get Right as well to make things slightly easier, but it's both sides taking the punches at the moment, and less than 30 seconds to plant the bomb. And with no smokes left, this does get a bit scary for NiP. That's a great play from Lecro. Spots both players, takes down one. Forrest in a 1v1 with an AWP. That's very favorable. Can he make it work though? Goes for the quick peek, gets the leg shot onto Bialy. Still a chance here for Bialy as he pushes forwards. Forrest takes more damage, 11 HP, 1 bullet. Can change this one now, and it's going to be for Bialy as he gets himself the kill on the defuse. That is a crisis averted, but the bomb was planted, and NiP have cash in the bank. This could put VP in a bad spot if they aren't careful.
Those smokes were cool from NiP. I have to assume they popped together by design. And I also have to assume that Forrest didn't realize he tagged the player there. Never drew for the pistol. Obviously, the peek like that into a rifler who's standing there is reasonably slow with an AWP. The fact he tagged him in the first place was quite impressive, though. It was a nice peek from Forrest. But indeed, the plant gives them some extra money, which is in the hole, really. because they're good for the buy anyway. Ninjas in Pyjamas still with a round lead. And again, on the plus side, only one player survived for Virtus.Pro, so now they can look at it as a round to reset them. This is a nice jump from Neo. It can be important to break that window early, but also he has this jump, so when that smoke goes, he has an angle into connector, which won't be commonly looked for by a T player, and that may have a role to play in this round later on.
Yeah, it's cool that, you know, we'll see Neo being in these much more active positions in this iteration of VP. Mihu looking to take a peek there from the short position. But once again, NiP, they really feel like, oh, that's a bad miss there from Rez. They really feel like they should have taken that A-bomb side on the previous round, perhaps, and they will hit it again with a similar split. They've got very forward positions here. This will be difficult here for the VP players to defend. Pasha, will they spot him out? That's brilliant spray there, but Pasha still gets himself a frag, goes for another one. Is punished, though, as the 4v3 ensues here, and NiP are doing a good job, but damage still there from Snatchy, looking to slow them down.
One more peek. Oh, he's being teased with the elbow, trying to adjust, but as soon as he looks away, I think it may have been Forest from the stairs, but there we go. That's another round for Ninjas in Pyjamas. Get some bonus money from the plant as well. Always important. Let me move towards 4-2. So indeed, NiP get the reset, and now the consecutive rounds will be a lot easier to win. So again, there is an upside to losing a round sometimes, especially when you're on the T side. So there's not always cause to get upset, because it can present you with a very unique opportunity, and money will be spent. We see Snatchy has picked up a Scout. A faster movement speed than the AWP, so perhaps he can get himself a cheeky headshot and fall back. Again, big presence from NiP and an anti-eco, anti-force buy round in the mid-area.
We may see that B play again. You can see this time VP have positioned around B quite often with quite a lot of players. That's a nice kill from Forest, and Lekra will clear space towards that short area, which will give him the opportunity soon to try to push in to see if he can get any information on the B site. And with a flashbang, he can make that peak fairly safe. So we'll see if NiP want to go for this again. And we have to remember that, you know, from VP's perspective, they've seen NiP run that round into B a couple times. And NiP are mixing things up. And with the 5 versus 4, you have to favor them here as they look to strike onto that A site. And VP, they seem to realize this, and they start to rotate from B.
45 seconds remain. Bomb moving in with support on that ramp position, and there's a headshot with the Scout. Again, Snatchy can jiggle all over the place with that. More problems here for Ninjas in Pyjamas. They've got 30 seconds to try and shut this down. Dennis creeping through the smoke, going for a round-winning play, but now we have an exposed bomb planter, no cover, 20 seconds for Lekra. He's got to run. He's got to go for this as fast as he can, but he has to assume he's got to expect one frag and a bomb plant at best, and tries to get the other one afterwards, but not going to push CT with 11 seconds left. Just going to gamble. Just about going to get away with it. Here's a footstep. Where's the second player? A transfer is almost there, but Bayali with 13 HP will steal around for Virtus.Pro.
Oh, that's a good effort, isn't it? Down to 13. Ooh. Wow, that was a very nice rotation from VP there. They got that in with perfect timing. Snatchy, you can see starting things off very well, and Lekra is just so far away in middle. They never expected to take so much in the way of losses. Lekra was the insurance that when the bomb goes down, it's impossible for them to win the round, but got to get the bomb down first. So VP, they're fighting back from this horrible position that they found themselves in, where their back is against the wall, their economy is constantly in turmoil. But NiP are going to be in the same position soon if they're not careful. This is really the round where VP can make the difference, but they've got to stop, you know, when they win rounds, they've got to stop the situation where they only survive with one player. It makes things very volatile indeed.
Soon into the next round, Forest pulls out the AWP. So everything we said has just gone up in smoke, and this is an interesting round for both teams. If NiP don't get the plant and Virtus.Pro win this round, then they'll be in a situation that NiP were in earlier on. Neo smoking the top of mid, I think, for an Astralis-esque play, but he was blocked for a while. As you can see, Virtus.Pro have no one in the B bomb site, which explains what that first smoke was. Probably deep in apartments, but is there a read here for Ninjas in Pyjamas?
Looking to go for a faster pace towards A. And look how they've changed their setup here. Dennis to try to defend that pit position, but the offensive setup from VP will be able to take him down. That's information for NiP, but in reality, it's going to be favorable for VP. A 4 versus 3. They've got more information. They've put someone very deep in that position, which allows them to fall back further on this DA setup and play it more safe.
I think seeing 2 players in ramp of Virtus.Pro gave NiP a lot of information, and they thought, because they just ran 2 mid and boosted into the window immediately, so it seems they had an instant read as to where Virtus.Pro weren't going to be with their other 2 players. You've got to cover B and maybe connect or something, I don't know, but they seemed pretty confident in their information, and they weren't wrong.
And NiP have tried to figure this out. They know that T-Spawn could have been pushed. Forest has the bomb and he's alone. This is very dangerous. 35 seconds to go. The 2 NiP players on the bomb site need to do the damage. Rez will get one, as does Get Right, which really opens things up. A passage is cleared for Forest to get that bomb planted. 25 seconds though to do so, as Get Right holds angles. And he's got to hit the shots because there is no smoke grenade. Oh, there is! Forest will be able to block off that jungle position. And Pasha has not got an angle. This is looking promising for NiP, or maybe not.
Oh, he really had to land that frag. That is brutal. Creeping through the smoke is Barley, but Get Right will spot him. Had the better angle, it seems. And now Pasha, opportunity may have gone. Does he go for the gamble? He wants to draw out a second player. One moving towards that connector position, and Forest is not going to expect this. The flashbang's there, but it's too late. Pasha doesn't have a kit, though. There's one in front of him. You can see it there, but that would draw him out. Going for a 10-second defuse, but didn't even get to 9 before Get Right took him out.
Really nice round from Get Right. You know, he traded really well, very decisively there, and really made it look... I mean, obviously it was a close round, but he looked very confident and almost made it look decisive if you were just watching his POV, as NiP win a very important round. And it was very cool there to see how both teams were reading the situation. You know, NiP were knowingly moving into a spot where Forest knew with the bomb that he'd likely be up in against a 1 versus 1. But their timing with that push from connector was did make it a lot better for him in the end. So good awareness. Back to the scouts. And, well, VP won a round like this previously. Well, NiP have a different approach this time.
Once more, opportunity knocks for Ninjas in Pyjamas. This is the break round. Break the money of Virtus.Pro to give Ninjas in Pyjamas a break from the rifles and so on and so forth. But can they do better this time? Minute 15 on the clock. They've got possession of ladder room. That will compromise some places where the CTs might stand on the B bomb site. One player spotted in apps. That would suggest a B split at this point. But there was some tagging. Barley, can he get 2? Can he get 2? He can't even get 1. And that should be the round now for Ninjas in Pyjamas. Snatchy has nowhere to hide, and Pasha can only hope to pick up an AK and do some damage at this point.
Yeah, it's a big struggle, isn't it? There's one quick kill at the end, but otherwise a clean round for NiP. They'll be very happy with that one, and they will move up to a 6-3 scoreline on this T side. So things I think are going, despite some scary situations here or there, they've held their nerve and their composure very well. It's another day at the office here for NiP. You know, just of course, you know, flying in from the playoffs there at DreamHack Masters in Malmö, and we'll see now whether or not, or Stockholm even, and we'll see now whether or not they can, you know, continue on with some of that form that they showed there. Get Right's looking pretty good so far. I've been enjoying watching his POV. VP with a single P250. That's the only investment that's gone into this round. Can't expect too much from that.
Dennis is in B apartments, and he will hear this movement of the CTs, but someone's got to go and collect the bomb before they move up that mid position, which is more urgent now, as they've lost their player in mid. Lekro's gone to collect the bomb. Get Right and Rez are in the A side, and Rez has cleared out CT for the time being. There is a player on the stairs in A standing on the smoke, but that won't be much of a threat. So just that one player lost. Good round for Ninjas in Pyjamas, moving to a 7-3 scoreline as Virtus.Pro are back in for the bye. No sniper rifles, Virtus.Pro in this round, 5 M4A4s, no silenced M4s to be seen. Smoke grenades and so on. Let's see what VP have in the bag for NiP.
I think so far we've seen, you know, 2 cool defaults for NiP in the way that they take middle and position for that A split, and where they take middle and instead position towards B. That said, we're not really going to get a default in this round. We've got everybody going from NiP into those B apartments, and they're going to go for an explosion onto that B bomb site. This could be devastating for VP. VP have forward positioning on the pit position on A, but will they work this out in time? I don't think they will. In comes the push, and they're out of position.
In the smoke, do they fall back or do they stand and fight? Ooh, that would have been a big frag for Bali, but he'll take it in the face. 4 headshots, 4 kills across the board here. Bomb is planted, Snatchy moving through connector, and 2 CTs are in market.
Bomb ticking away. If nothing else, NiP have a bomb plant and 2 kills. That's already quite devastating here for VP. Their economy sucks, and Forest starts things off well, can't follow up onto Snatchy as he makes his way forwards now from short onto that B bomb site. That follow-up engagement will not go his way as Neo's left with 11 points of health, and perhaps not really wanting to try to do this with that health. And he's going to get shot in the back. There's no escape. No prisoners will be allowed.
Moving towards the right of the smoke, he had to go that way in one sense because he didn't have a kit, but there was one on the floor near the short pillars. But ultimately, as you can see, there's a kit on the floor, but just gave it up. Just gave it up in the end, and you could see there's some frustration on the faces of Virtus.Pro. Again, in parts they've been holding on because of the status at the Major until that woeful match we commentated, which I think was on Mirage if I'm not mistaken. But here they are again with the pistols, and that's a juicy weapon to be collected. Nobody in B apartments to stop them. However, NiP are charging through mid, expecting the CTs to fall back, but they gambled and went through B. So now NiP are going for a super fast split on the A side. We've got Snatchy moving through Palace in the meantime. Mihu's running the distraction. He's up close with Rez, trying to reload his gun. He's got more CTs here. And with Snatchy in Palace, this is surely spelling disaster for NiP.
Yeah, they're picking up all kinds of guns. This is awkward. Nice shot from Mihu. Nails get right as Lecro is just have to try to take some guns out of these hands of these VP players. 2 fast frags a minute to play with, 14 HP, and AWP trained on his position. Surely no way he can do this. Oh, the repositioning from Mihu could have created an opportunity, but it would not be there for Lecro in the end as he gets taken out. And that'll be 4 rounds for VP. Just winning all these weird ones.
Cupid's all smiles now. It's hilarious. He had his head in his hands at the end of the previous round, and now he's got a big smile on his face. And indeed, they are winning the worst of the rounds. But now they're in the best of positions in terms of equipment, at least. Full buy, AWP, all the bits and bobs stolen from the previous round. 2 AK-47s on the CT side can make the difference, but will it? Will it make the difference in this round?
Yeah, it's so funny, how NiP have gone through different storylines when it comes to their ability to deal with 4 spies. That said, I don't know if this game is really can speak to that storyline. I think VP have just been very good in those rounds. Sometimes the timing just works out your way. VP, as you say, looking really good at the moment on the equipment with a strong presence here in middle. Mihu looking for that push. Will NiP go dry? Yes, they will. Dry into the angle against Mihu. Mihu covering the underpass. Nades sent out by Mihu. And NiP will force them back to take some map control.
Vintage Mihu smoke. With this, he can look towards the lower area. He's got a small gap on the left-hand side. He can also jump up on top and look into mid, but he's being sprayed down. It's a good POV to watch Mihu playing short on Mirage on the CT side. Bali left alone now towards the apartments area. Then it's in the kitchen, and his teammates are joining him. Lecro moving through the mid position, maybe going to try and sneak into the short area, but he may meet Bali. But Bali's jumping. Lecro has heard that now, and surely he goes for the fast peek. Oh, the timing is brutal. Don't punch the desk.
Yeah, there's a chance here for NiP to make this one work quite well, but Neo sneaks around the site. Can't find what he's looking for, and surely it's a save scenario now for VP. You can't really get back into that B site. Hold on to the AWP, hold on to the AK, and NiP finds success here. And it's often quite difficult, you never want to give away mid control for free if you can avoid it to the Ts, because it gives them so many ways to work the map, and it gives them so many ways to deny information, so you don't know how they're working the map. That puts you in a horrible position as the CTs. So you try to get information, you try to do some damage, and we can see in this round, it's a pretty good effort from VP. They had a good setup. You know, they go 1-for-1 with Mihu's frag, but that 4v4 does favor the Ts. It's just it's a tightrope you're walking. Any one mistake and you're sent falling. It's a terminal velocity, perhaps.
And there is another reset. Virtus.Pro have been unable to string 2 rounds together of the force they have won. They have lost the following round every single time. That is brutal for Bayali. He did concede his position already, unbeknownst to him, so I think Lekro was already at an advantage. But that's just not the way you want to die. You hold an angle, you look around, as soon as you turn away, you get shot in the back. Nobody likes that. Nobody likes that. And we have a timeout, or a pause. Not sure what the cause is of the pause just yet. But we will soon find out. Okay, Lekro is reconnecting. Just reconnected to the server. And, okay, so... yes, technical pause. I think we will soon be into it. Make sure your Steam accounts are connected to your Twitch and YouTube accounts, because of course there are drops for the Major, new souvenirs on different maps. Those racing, it's like the racing dual Berettas and a Krieg, and they both look really, really sick. I will definitely be purchasing those.
Well, back into the match now. 9-4 is the score in favor of NiP, as it looks like they may put a lot of presence here towards that B bomb site once again. A fast movement for the B apps with 3 players, and they have a lurker in Get Right, doing Get Right things towards that Palace position on the A bomb site. Now
you can't get popped by an AK. Something like that.
And there's also an opportunity. NiP could go down underpass after throwing the nades, but it looks like they're just going to go in, James.
Well, are they? Oh. Rez has made his way in. Looks like he wants to go towards a short position, catching Mihu off guard, but Mihu's ready for it. They know a second player is here, but I think they're wondering what else is going on at the moment, because the bomb is on a very long rotation. Patch is still on the A bomb site. And they've held, and Neo's moving away immediately. I could see Neo on the radar looking towards shot. I can see him thinking in his movements, but Snatchy is killing with his movements. Lekro in the red now, holding towards CT, but he can't fire another shot, Snatchy. 3 versus 2. Bomb moving over to that triple position, but with only 16 HP, Lekro is surely not long for this. Mihu takes him out, and that's going to leave Forest, but he will get dispatched of as well. And Virtus.Pro find their 5th round, 3 players surviving, a second AWP if they want it.
Yeah, and that's a round where I think they were just trying to set Get Right up. You know, you create this push that looks like it's going to be very strong into that B bomb site. You have Get Right lurking in the Palace position. If there's a player playing on the, you know, playing pit or playing the site, it's a possibility that, you know, they're going to be rotating out, which gives Get Right a potential to, you know, hear the running, hear the footsteps. He peeks out, he takes down that player in A, able to create some space, create some chaos, create some positioning for his team. But there was nothing. There was no one going from any positions for Get Right to exploit. So then they were just playing from behind at that point.
Two-man push on a short position from Virtus.Pro, but oh, there's a smoke here already. Neo's been taken out. That's a very early frag for Ninjas in Pyjamas, but they're not going crazy. It's an early frag, there's plenty of time. They can try to stretch Virtus.Pro, stretch the band thinner until it snaps, and then capitalize on the advantages. Bali not shy to make his presence known. Just having a look, trying to spot. Maybe slowing NiP down with all this noise. As that smoke disappears, though, he'll have to fall back, but they will hear him doing that, and perhaps they won't expect Mihu in ladder room.
Lekro with a deagle, though. Looking to jump into that window, perhaps. Ooh, he's going to find an angle on Bialy. That is a big frag. That's 2 players now dead for VP. How do they save this one? NiP look like they could be good for that 10-5 scoreline ending the first half. Snatchy pushes the B apartments. If NiP rotate to this position, this could be huge for VP. This could be their way back into the round. It's on Snatchy's shoulders right now.
These T's know their angles, though. Rez, I was waiting for that to happen. The way he was lined up there on the X-ray, you knew that peak was coming. And that leaves Pasha and Mihu. Again, disaster for Virtus.Pro. This is the last round of the first half. Mihu's got to go for it, and it's 1 versus 5. Standing around the connector, wondering what might have been. Again, it looks like there will be no consecutive rounds, but he picks up Forest on that short position. But now 4 players know where he is. Rez will move in and wait. 1 more headshot, and that's 10 rounds for NiP and only 5 for Virtus.Pro on their CT side.
Yeah, so all things considered, a very smooth half for NiP, I suppose. Had some bumps here or there, but it definitely smoothed out. And we think about some of the rounds that VP won. They were rounds where they were force buying. There were rounds where they only had some pistols. You know, weren't seeing a consistency from the CT full buys of VP, which puts NiP in an amazing position moving into this second half. If the pistol it goes to NiP, it's going to be very difficult for VP. They must find a way to win this pistol.
Indeed, 2 players on the T side with P250s, smoke, and a flash. Prevalence of the P250 is pure Yoi in the pistol round, on the T side specifically. Much greater range for a 1-shot than a Glock. Can make all the difference. 4 players out in the mid position. Is this a fast charge into the short area? Forest! Oh boy, he is sweeping. 2 players taken out, but the bomb is still collected. And that's a lot of information for these CTs. Rez will stay towards A for the time being. They're rotating, but they're delivering almost all the kills NiP. 4 versus 2, and it seems the plan has been abandoned. The high ground advantage has been lost now towards the B bomb site, but Snatchy will try to clear out A while Neo still waits on shorts.
Yeah, P250 doing well so far, although as I say that, Snatchy will lose the 1v1, and perhaps indeed the chances will be shut down for VP. NiP pick up the pistol, and they need to do what NiP did and win this force buy that is to follow. VP is a really tough situation. You can see Forest here opening things up for his team. Just a spray down with that USP, easy stuff. And yeah, we get the force buy from VP. This has to work. This has to do some damage.
Well then, how do you close the distance? Going Palace is one way. Got to cut the noise now because Rez is in the shadow position. Pasha will slow down before he gets to the ramp area as well. And if they go early, this should be free for Rez. Only the players inside the Palace have flashbangs. There's Pasha on the low ground taken out. Easy for Rez. Make that money. No damage done. Nothing at all for Virtus.Pro in that round. No kills, no plants. And they got roasted by a UMP, at least in part, which is bonus money for Ninjas in Pyjamas. Not losing a single player versus a force buy is fantastic for your money on the CT side.
Yeah, now VP just have to almost just hold their hands up and just like run into the grinder now, as NiP have an incredible advantage. Just get this round over and done with, get the AKs rolling in to try to fight against NiP, but by that point they'll have 13 rounds already to play with, so life will be difficult. Forest's first blood rate is 29% compared to his historical average of 10%. Well, you'd like to see that if you're an NiP fan, and more specifically a Forest fan, and I think it's hard not to be, no matter what team you support. I think his legacy in the game of Counter-Strike is too great to be anything but a fan of his.
Ooh, Dennis has Forest, but Forest can't stand here forever. Got to deliver this kill quickly, just about manages to do it, and escapes towards Connector where he has support from Get Right as well. The old guard. He can spot the entrance to the B apartments from his position, Forest, although he falls back just before somebody goes in there. So he won't see them going. So now NiP don't know if Virtus.Pro are going towards B or A, which means 2 per site, though Get Right is taking matters into his own hands. There's 1, but only 1. Took too many bullets, and now Lekro's got a problem.
Yeah, the M4 picked up, so some damage being done. And let's not forget, though, NiP did win the previous round flawlessly, so this is not too much of an issue so far. As long as Lekro can do the damage, and he will with that FAMAS. 1 more player to go, and Lekro will push for it. No Kevlar here for Pasha. It does make life difficult. No helmet either. And his head will be popped. 13 rounds for NiP, losing only 2 players there. And AKs can come out finally. Finally for VP.
Well then, 8 rounds to tie the score. Virtus.Pro. Not impossible by any means. They can lose a round, but probably just the one. One and an eco, really. But they will have no intention of doing that. Very early grenades going out. Smoke in the middle of mid, and a decoy. Oh, the Molotov has failed, so there could be players behind those boxes. And as you can see, there was a second player by Connector, Rez, to take out the T's moving back from top mid. And now they know no one's there. But it cost them another $600. Hello, Pasha hiding behind the smoke, waiting for a trade fragger, but he's got too many places to look. In the meantime, Virtus.Pro charging into the B bomb site, and Forest gets wiped out on short.
Yeah, this is a really difficult situation to retake this B bomb site. VP have constructed a very difficult task here for NiP to try to overcome. Rez will peek out from short. Oh, going for the transfer. Looks good, looked like it could be on, but it was not enough. Get right. And Dennis doing damage. Dennis, that's incredible. One more player to go now. Neo, 1 versus 2. VP had everything going for them, but NiP, they can't be denied here. They find their way to success. I don't know how they managed to pull that one off. That was some magic.
Dennis, that frag, what? Just what? They don't deserve that. That was absolutely merciless. Look at this. Oh boy, he's styling and profiling. That was nasty. That's an enormous frag. But the plant will allow Virtus.Pro to get another buy. Very important that they managed to plant the bomb there. 14-5 in favour of Ninjas in Pyjamas, and now we see Forest doing what we saw, I think, from Neo in a previous round. So again, you break the window, because if you can get that jump in fast, you can go between those bricks in the window and the ladder position, almost creating an extra man. Virtus.Pro again focus on the B bomb side, but there's a fast rotation from Dennis here. They seem to have a read as to what Virtus.Pro are trying to do.
Yeah, they've got everyone in position. I don't know how VP can break this. Dennis close, Lecro far away with the AWP. Oh my god, they're just moving into the machine and they're not going to escape in one piece. 5 players survive for NiP as they move themselves further forward, further closer to victory. And 1 more round is all that's required. And we'll see whether or not VP can scrap together enough with this pitiful money to manage to create a dent even in NiP. Because some of these rounds have looked quite flawless for the Ninjas in Pyjams. Okay, so 3 AKs, as he said, and a Galil. 2 smoke grenades. It's not pretty. That is for sure. But will it be enough? NiP not wanting to overstep the situation. They are playing a passive setup. Keep things under control. Just close out the first game easily. Don't let it get complicated. That first half seemed so much more competitive. VP, though, in this second half have been shut down pretty hard.
Well, 3 of those 4 rounds, they essentially had pistols. Sorry, 3 of those 5 rounds. The pistol round and then 2 more very unlikely rounds. So let's see. 1 minute now for Virtus.Pro as they slowly emerge in that mid position. Forest is waiting behind the smoke, quietly so, with a silenced M4 no less. Notable at this point. Get right in the sandwich position. This will be hard to check for. Standing deep into the corner, he can't be seen from Palace. There is one. Now he has to press forward to get the second one, but he can't. Plenty of trades around the site. 3 on 3, make it 2 as Mihu is taken out. And Virtus.Pro have not yet crossed to the site with the players who are alive, but that's one way to do it by Ali. We've got Forest now in the connector position. The bomb can't go down. Everything is covered. Trying to bait out a peek, but Dennis doesn't believe on the first try. He has an AWP. There's a flashbang from his teammate. Not sure if it works, but AWP certainly does. Spotting. Showing a little bit too much, and Pasha, they're both in the red, these CTs. Presses on forward. Oh, he sees him. He's trying to bait the trade fragger. There he goes, but the insta-trade from Ninjas in Pyjamas, and that will be that. 16-5 over Virtus.Pro here on Mirage.
It was a close one, could have gone VP's way, but still, it was a more than an uphill struggle for them. NiP out of the gate though, looking strong, looking clean, and that's what you want to see if you are a fan of the Ninjas in Pajamas. And they're an exciting team. They are a very exciting team. VP though, they'll have more chances to prove themselves here.
Absolutely, that is the Ninjas in Pajamas that you want to see, that people have been hoping and praying to see for maybe even a year or two now, I think it's fair to say. And that is a great start for them. As for Virtus.Pro, couldn't really get on the board, but I have to give credit to Ninjas in Pajamas. They had, on their T side, they had some really solid strats. On their CT side, they seem a very well-oiled machine. Their counter grenades to mid takes when they had the Molotov. I mean, the first Molotov fell, but that's like, whatever. The Molotov behind the boxes, and then they have the second player come through connector to try and take them out as they're forced away. Like, they look like they are very ready for this major.
Yeah, I was impressed. I think all the just focus around map control and how they handled it looked really good. Yeah, their Mirage game, I think they've proven over the last few tournaments has been pretty impressive.
Yeah, they have been super awesome, and we are going to have an interview on the floor with Paula.
Thank you, James. That's correct. I'm here on the floor. I want to start off by asking Lekro, because he needs to rush off to the bathroom. What's it like in-game leading the team?
It's good. I like the atmosphere in the team, and they're easy to work around with.
Fantastic. All right, Alex, that one was for you. Let me head over to Dennis as I trip over one of the chairs. So, Dennis, at the recent tournament you played in DreamHack, you said you had a series that was the worst in your life. Have you bounced back from that here today at the Major?
Yeah, of course. I was playing around today. It was pretty easy. So, yeah, I'm back.
All right, great to hear. And now, for this organisation, it's been a very long time since you've been able to compete at a Major. For yourself, what's it like to be on this team and to secure a spot at the Major and be here?
Feels good. I mean, feels very good that we're in the Major, of course. And I think we're in a good form, so I think we're going to go far.
All right. How far do you think you're going to go before I head over to Forest?
At least finals.
There we go. Best of luck. All right. Forrest, can I have a quick word with you, sir? Going up against Neo, one of the other storied veterans here at the Major, how do you compare what's going on in your career to his? Because it feels like you're on the rise and they're still struggling.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel bad for Neo. I've read the interview. He talked about a little bit about the team, how they struggle, and I mean, I want to see them back on the top. I know they have the fire in them, and I don't know what to say, man. I hope they can keep on going, because I know they're great players and a great team if they just want to.
Awesome. And now, of course, you guys came through the the minor, and you just had a great result at DreamHack Stockholm, 3rd place. What's it like for you to be back at a Major?
Hey, it's incredible. It's been almost 2 years, I think, more than 2 years, and it's incredible to be here playing again. This is still the early stages of the Major, but it's good to be here, and I'm confident we're going to go far.
And at this stage of the competition, what do you think about the other teams involved? It's a mixed bag, but there's some definitely solid teams out there.
Yeah, I mean, depending which team we get matched up, you have Liquid, you have Astralis. As you said, there's a lot of good teams here, and some teams that we don't really usually play against, and so it's like the whole stage is through here is going to be interesting. But as I said, I'm feeling confident. We did a good tournament, as you said, so we will see.
There we go. Forrest, anything else that you'd like to add to everybody at home?
Honestly, I just hope you guys enjoy playing the Major again. It's been a long time, but we're going to do our best here to make sure we stay in this circuit.
There we go, ladies and gentlemen. NiP are back on their feet at the Major. Alex and the guys at the desk, what do you think about what's transpired?
Yes, an open and shut case for the Ninjas in Pajamas up against Virtus.Pro. People suggesting it could have been closer, sure, but when NiP are firing on all cylinders, when Dennis is just playing around in the server, it really did look all too easy.
Yeah, and that was one of the points I wanted to run with there, is that Dennis, yeah, he did have a bad tournament in Stockholm, but he's come out here firing, and it's a good way to go against a wounded VP to get some confidence on the board, get some big AWP kills up there as well. And another point was the fact that Forrest mentioning they haven't been here in a while. They haven't actually played in a Major for some time. When you have such a legendary name, that slipped my mind. It was like, oh, we haven't had an NiP at Majors for a while, right. But that is the case. We haven't seen these names, the Forest, the Get Right to the World, at these top-tier events, and we know they're big stage players, so the deeper they go, the better they get. So it's a good start for NiP, all things considered. Yeah,
not a good start for Neo, though. We put him head-to-head, of course. We'll check in with that a little later on, but you know, on the counterpart thing, Mishu was rocking at 18 frags. Doesn't matter what was happening in the server, he was still pulling his weight for Virtus.Pro.
That's a little bit sad, because I feel that's going to be the reoccurring trend for this VP lineup for the next future. That Micho is doing well, Snatchy will find his foothold on the team as well, and he'll probably do well. The talent is there, but the team itself is just not a team. We saw it in this game; they're just dismantled by NiP. It's not like NiP had to do anything special to win. They just had to play their game and play the ground level of Counter-Strike, not go beyond and beyond. It was just too easy, and there was not really anything VP did to try to stop it.
Yeah, I mean, the first half was not irreparable. 10-5 half, it already looks tough. They just got locked out in the second.
We have to consider they won the pistol, then they got force bought. Then there were 2 rounds where Bialy had to come through with kills and diffusers, which got them 3 rounds on the board. And these are post-plant scenarios. And then when you flick on over, that's when the individuals of NiP are just able to step up and lock out. Because that's, if you look at this squad, the individuals are there to hold their own. It's the T side where we really question them. And on Mirage, they weren't tested. They had found opening kills, and from there wasn't any team aggression coming out of VP. There were no moves made to grab map territory back. And even when you had 2 AWPs posted up, they were in 2 positions on the map where, sure, you have information, but you're going to have to hit some gnarly shot after shot. If you're in A apps and they're coming up A ramp, for example, you're in a very difficult spot.
Just overall felt super flat, right? You would assume that VP had something to come with. They had been reinventing something or just trying something new, at least when they know Bialy is not going to be there after the major as well. But it was just a super flat game.
Yeah, and a super flat Neo, actually. We bring up that head-to-head. We set the scene of 2 veterans of Counter-Strike, the Counter-Strike genre in general, and yet this one is quite a stark contrast. An underperformance from Neo, unable to field too many frags, never mind headshots and average damage per round. You can see Forrest really just the spearhead of the assault alongside Dennis from the Ninjas.
That is a positive note that Forrest is continuing the form that we just saw in Stockholm. He's transferring it to here, and this is a long run if you want to make it to the top 8. It's 3 weeks of Counter-Strike. That's a lot of games to be played. With the Swiss system, you at least have to play 3 matches if you want to make it to the next round. So the more, I guess, we get into this, hopefully, that can continue, because NiP is a legendary name, and it's one that, most of us want to see towards the top of Counter-Strike.
Speaking of Swiss, we can take a look at that updated bracket for you. So we have got a couple of games under our belt. In fact, just a couple. 2 done so far. Up next, you have Gambit versus Tyloo.
Spicy.
Ooh, big Renegades as well. We've got some real spice coming at you throughout the day, and these next 2 are definitely no shortage of that. Looking forward to Team Liquid versus Optic and Astralis Complexity to round out the day as well. Got North Hellraisers. A lot of our analysts were excited about that one, to see if North can do it again, just across a 1-hour flight from Stockholm.
Yeah, just win a tournament, get on a plane, and come to the biggest one of the year. Why not? It should be simple as that for him, right?
We'll find out. Gambit Tyloo is coming up after our break. We're going to take a quick break, and when we do come back, we'll get to see exactly